Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I'm Ryan Bolin. Thank you all for joining me. In this video, what I want to talk about is what I would consider to be a semi-victory for conservatives and for anyone who cherishes human life. And that is in reference to the bill that was passed in the House, that basically it was an abortion bill that passed in the House that basically states that the practitioners who were trying to perform an abortion and the abortion was not successful on trial, the child is born, they have to provide medical care to their child to ensure that it will survive. The bill also attacks or condemns those who have committed acts of violence against churches and pro-life centers that oppose abortion. So I believe that this is what I would call a semi-victory. Now, I'm going to get into the details of what I mean by semi-victory, but let's get right into this article. And it reads, with a new Republican majority, the U.S. House of Representatives passed pro-life measures on Wednesday, including one aimed at protecting babies who survive an abortion and one condemning violence against pro-life charities and churches. The lower chamber passed the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act in a vote of 220 yeas to 210 nays. All Republicans and one Democrat, Representative Henry Cuellar of Texas, voted in favor of the measure. Also known as House Resolution 26, if enacted, the act would require an abortion provider to try to save the life of a baby who survives an abortion procedure. Health providers would be required to exercise the same degree of care as reasonably provided to any other child born alive at the same gestational age and ensure that such children are admitted to a hospital. What reason would there be anybody to vote against that? I don't know, Whoever intentionally performs or attempts to perform an overt act that kills a child born alive shall be punished for intentionally killing or attempting to kill a human being, reads the bill. The bill also states that the mother of the child, quote, may not be prosecuted and that she may, in a civil action against any person who committed the violation, obtain appropriate relief. The bill is unlikely to become law. Now, here's why I talk about reasons. Here's my reasons in calling it a semi-victory for us, The bill is unlikely to become law as it would have to pass the Democrat-controlled Senate, and even then would likely be vetoed by Democrat President Joe Biden. And that's so true. But at least it sets the precedent, because now that you have the House of Representatives controlled by the Republicans, even though the Senate is controlled by Democrats, the House is controlled by the Republicans. So to put it in a nutshell, the far left radicals that have infiltrated the Democratic Party for the most part, these communists and socialists that have infiltrated the Democratic Party for the most part, cannot create these far left radical laws and bring them to the floor thinking they're going to get passed. Because a significant number of these Republicans are going to vote against that. So the way I see that, that's a semi-victory. Even if the House, even if the Senate, which is controlled by these feckless Democrats, a lot of these Democrats are not Democrats of your forefathers back then. Even if they even if they were all rah for these far left radical views that some Democrats may try to propose in the House, it won't pass. So to me, that's a semi-victory. So even if Joe Biden, he would probably pass anything they put on the table, he probably wouldn't even look at it. He probably said, okay, sign it into a bill anyway. As long as it's Democrat supported and far left, he'll sign it anyway. It didn't make no difference. He don't have a brain half the time, and he's taking drugs to keep his brain where it needs to be, I'm pretty sure. It won't make no difference because they set the precedent. They set the foundation. So radical laws can't be pushed anymore. Hopefully and thankfully. I say hopefully because anything could happen, but thankfully at this point, as conservatives, we have some victory in this situation. The article goes on to say, similar legislation has failed in the past when brought before the Senate, with critics arguing that the measure is unnecessary given that there are already laws in place. The Republican majority also passed a resolution condemning the recent wave of violence and vandalism against pro-life pregnancy care centers, churches, and other entities that oppose abortion. It is amazing to me. I've seen, and it's amazing and also disgusting to see these pro-abortion protesters entering into people's sanctuaries and doing and saying some of the most profane, nasty things you could ever. It's like, man, these people got to be demon possessed to do what they do. Clearly, they're deceived into believing what they believe. The way I see it, in my opinion, they're deceived. But to do the things that they do, to go in somebody's sanctuary and do that in the sanctuary, and then claim they believe in God, they believe in the spiritual realm. What kind of God you believe? Must be Satan. That must be your God, because it certainly isn't the God of the Bible. It certainly isn't the God of the Bible. So let's go on. The resolution passed with a vote of 229 to 219, with only 3 Democrats joining all Republicans to condemn the violence. The resolution also called on the Biden administration to, quote, use all appropriate law enforcement authorities to uphold public safety and to protect the right of pro-life faculties, groups, and churches. The wave of vandalism and arson targeting pro-life organizations was sparked after an unknown party leaked a draft of the U.S. Supreme Court opinions in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health that indicated that the highest court in the nation was going to overturn Roe v. Wade. The 1973 decision made abortion a national right. The vandalism continued to escalate after the Supreme Court released its Dobbs opinion on June 24th, in which the court overturned Roe by concluding that abortion was not a constitutional right, and it was not. It's based on, now it's in the hands of the state, which I don't know why that's a problem for people that want to get an abortion. It's in the hand of your state. Anyway, many pro-life activists and politicians believe that the Biden administration and federal investigators have not done enough to hold those who attacked and threatened pro-life groups accountable. Rather than supporting the organizations that are supporting our most vulnerable, Democrats and the Biden administration are turning a blind eye to the violence targeted in these places, stated an entry on Republican Majority Leader Steve Scalton's website. It's time for the House of Representatives to condemn this violence and put the need of women and infants ahead of the outrage machine from far-left pro-abortion activists. And that's just it, far left. Now listen to this. This is something here that, in all fairness, needs to be exposed as well. Others, including Democratic Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher of Texas, believe the resolution does not go far enough to condemn all forms of partisan violence, especially the decades of protests and acts of violence against abortion clinics and providers. This is her words now. When I was a teenager, I stood in defense of our local Planned Parenthood as an anti-abortion protesters tried to chain themselves to the doors to prevent women from going in, not only to get abortion care, but to get their pap smears, their birth control, HIV tests, and other services, she stated on the floor. And let's be quite honest with you, it sounds like to me she was sincere then, and I think a lot of people that are pro-abortion are really sincere, at least on the lower level. What I mean by lower level, I mean those people that voted for these Democrats to support abortion. I think many of them are sincere. I don't think that the people that voted for abortion and so forth are evil in and of themselves. Okay. Now the activist groups, many of these activist groups, I think they're useful idiots. They think they're doing the right thing, but I don't think they see the bigger picture. Now those on the higher echelons of the pyramid, those Democrats that claim it's a good thing, abortion is a good thing, I don't believe them one bit. They're demons in human flesh. They have ulterior motives, population control, among others. So they're not fooling me by getting up here tricking millions and millions of women into believing that abortion is the right moral thing to do. No, they're demons in human flesh, and they need to be voted out, or we need to pray that God take them out. I'm saying pray that God take them out. I ain't saying we go out there and take them out, so I don't want to hear nothing in the comment section saying you preaching and teaching violence. No, I'm not. Either we vote them out, or I pray that God take them out. They're enemies to human life. Okay, let's go on. A few years later, she says, A well-known anti-abortion activist drove a van through the front door of that same Planned Parenthood. I welcome the opportunity to vote on legislation that condemns all forms of political violence. I agree. I agree. So here we have evidence that there's been people who are against abortion that have gone through extreme measures of violence to prevent women from getting these abortion clinics. I personally am against any form of violence that's initiated. Self-defense is different. But when you initiate acts of violence by driving a van through really, you could have killed somebody. You could have killed somebody. So either way go, both sides are wrong, and both sides who are using extreme acts of violence and vandalism should be condemned. So I agree with that. House Republicans also defeated an effort by Democrats to advance legislation that would have significantly expanded legal access to abortion. Known as the Women's Health Protection Act, the measure was defeated mostly along party lines, as nearly every Republican opposed the measure and nearly every Democrat supported it, of course. The Republican Party took control of the House of Representatives in the midterm elections last November, one of the few notable gains for an election season many conservatives considered disappointing. This is why I kind of considered it disappointing too, because many conservatives expected a red wave, but that's okay. You can get a little trickle. At least we got a trickle. We didn't get a wave, but we got a trickle. We got some splashes, okay? I'll take the splashes, okay? I'll take the splashes because at least, as I said earlier, it prevents from extreme radical measures from being pushed in the House and it's even in the Senate, but mainly in the House, okay? The 118th Congress began on a controversial start as it took 15 ballots to elect Republican Kevin McCarthy of California as House Speaker, the first time it has taken more than one vote since 1923, and that is the end of that article. But like I said, this is a semi-victory. Okay, they might not pass this. They may not even, you know what I'm saying? Look, the Senate, I know in my heart, the Senate is not going to even bother. If the Senate says, okay, yes, we agree with it. I don't know what compromising that the conservatives would have done to get the Senate to agree with this. If that be the case, I'm just making a prediction. But if that happens, I'm either going to look at that in one or two ways. Either God himself came down there and supernaturally touched the hearts of these Democrats in the Senate, or somebody somewhere on the right compromised something. You know what I mean? And Biden, like I said, Biden is not going to, even that be the case, Biden, he's going to veto it more than likely. But at any rate, it still sets the precedent. It saves America from a lot of radical views and violent views, mostly on the radical left. That takes the pressure off of us having to basically look behind our back every time, in our churches. We can't go to our churches and worship God in safety. It's a shame that as Americans, we have to come to this point in our country. It's a shame that we have to come to this point. It's a shame, but I just wanted to give that spin on that right there. I mean, what do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel. God bless you all, and see you again.